I love the clients that I work with now simply because I feel like the change is one more tangible. I think they're going to be focused more on like advising because the accounting is always going to be that foundational piece. Tomorrow is not promised. And that's just something that was instilled in me.
Welcome to a new episode of Make It Count. Today we're joined by Doyin, the founder of ASO Financial and a seasoned CPA with over 13 years of experience in accounting and advisory services, including two of the Big Fours in EY and Deloitte. Before starting ASO Financial, Doyin honed his expertise at EY, spending nearly 4 years specializing in financial reporting and tax solutions as part of their advisory team. Earlier in his career, he worked at Deloitte as an ERS Consultant within the Audit and Enterprise Risk Services function, supporting clients such as the US Department of Defense, the FCC, the US Department of Homeland Security, with projects relating to internal controls and risk assessment. After years in the government and non-profit space, Doyin sought a new challenge and founded ASO Financial. Today, he leverages his deep expertise to help businesses thrive. His passion for empowering clients and driving success is truly inspiring. I'm super excited for you to hear his story and gain insights from his incredible journey. So with that, let's jump in. Hey Doyin, welcome to the Make It Count podcast. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Doing good, David. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Where are you calling from yourself?
So I'm actually in the DC area, in Maryland, just outside of DC. I've been here pretty much since I've been in the US, so about 20 years now.
Wow, incredible. Love to learn more about Maryland one day for sure.
Have you ever been?
I have not, but I'll probably add it to the bucket list now after meeting you. But I guess first of all, thank you for joining the podcast. With the Make It Count podcast, the goal is to meet amazing and talk to amazing experienced accounting, finance, tax professionals like yourself. And I know you've had a ton of rich experiences, over a decade of experience in accounting, in public practice in Big Four, and now amazingly transitioning to running your own firm. So first of all, a big congratulations on a very incredible career to date.
No, thank you. I think it's definitely been a journey, and we're definitely gonna go into it. But I wouldn't change anything about just where we've ended up so far. And you yourself, your journey is quite impressive too.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I just love meeting like-minded people, and I guess supporting the industry however I can. Maybe quickly, could you give a quick 1-minute intro about Doyin, yourself, and all the amazing things you do?
Yeah, definitely. So originally I'm from Nigeria. I was born there, came here in 2004. My dad actually won the visa lottery, so that's how we got to come, and immigrate here to the US. And even in high school in Nigeria, like I was literally like the best accounting student, like in my high school. So I think I already kind of knew that, I wanted to go into business and accounting in some type of way. And when I came here, I actually went to the University of Maryland. I did accounting there. And then in 2010, I finished, in accounting. I never got my CPA at the time, but it was something I wanted to do. But I think just as a measure of being here in the DMV area, the government contracting, like consulting space is literally like one of like the biggest industries here. Even the Big Four, like it's one of the biggest things that they're into. So that was just something I just kind of fell into. And, I was working with like various like different like big government agencies, like the Army, Navy, DOD, civilian agencies. I worked for a time with, the American Red Cross. But all that gave me a lot of like good experience to really advise clients. And that was I think for me like one of the main things that I took away from that. So that was really like my background that kind of led me to where I am today.
That's really inspiring. I have such a very similar story. I was like the top in my class in accounting as well in high school and in university, and I mean that's how I got started in the profession. I mean, maybe looking back into that, like what made you what do you think like made you passionate about accounting at the beginning, or what made you like, how did you stand out? You love your numbers, you love your debits and credits. Any thoughts on that?
No. So this definitely goes back to Nigeria, right? I remember, so I went to Now this is crazy because I actually went to like I started school super super early. So when I was 8, I went to boarding school, and it was in another state, like 3 hours away from where I was living. So I did 3 years there, and then when I was 11, I came back to this Air Force like secondary school in Lagos, Nigeria. And my first term there, I was in the commercial class, so they kind of have a group like art, commercial science. So I was in commercial, and then accounting was one of the classes that I had to take. And then I remember like I totally just failed it. And my dad was so upset that he marched me to my accounting teacher's office, and he was like, "Yeah, you need to teach this guy like extra lessons, essentially like tutoring." So I just kind of after school each day, he became like my tutor, giving me extra lessons, and I just started getting it from there. But I think what kind of made me kind of initially kind of attracted to it was just the nature of it just being so logical, I guess. Like with basic accounting, like even like debits, credits must
Yeah.
equal. Like that's logical as hell, right?
There's
So
no
like
gray in
just
that.
right. So I think that was one thing that I was like, well, this makes sense. But also with the fact that I also liked business, which is something I would realize later on. But I was always very into business. I think as when I was younger too. I think those two things
Amazing.
moved me to just be into that accounting space.
Yeah, very similar to me. I was like, as soon as I could get away from science and everything, I would do that. Whenever I could just drop science, I wasn't great at science at all, and business was definitely something I enjoyed more.
Yeah.
I think you're probably uniquely positioned to answer this. So you said you studied a bit in Nigeria, and then you obviously studied accounting also in the US. And then you hear people say accounting is the language of business in the world. It's the global language of business. Have you seen any differences in accounting in Nigeria and the US? Is it more or less the same? Any thoughts on that?
I would say it's definitely the same. Now, when I left Nigeria, I was 15, but I had finished
Yeah,
high school already. So
yeah.
I do know that
Wow,
a lot of the
15 finished high school.
concepts. Yeah, yeah. That's another thing where I said I really finished high school, like finished school like super early. But I know like the concepts are very, very similar. At some point, actually, yeah, we'll get into this later. When I was like looking into potentially like with that my offshore team that I have now, I looked into potentially like some accountants from Nigeria. I know they work more than like a IFRS kind of system, but it's the concepts are very similar to like Gap. Yeah.
Oh, wow, very cool. Yeah, it's so interesting how like so many countries in the world, but there's some accounting standards that's just like make everyone like follows the similar rules and guidance, and that in itself is pretty beautiful and cool if you think
Yeah.
about it.
It's like a language in itself, right?
Right, right. That probably right now only CPAs understand, which I wish more kind of non-accounting finance and tax could really understand it a little bit more and understand the value. But yeah, we spoke about that.
Definitely.
So I
Definitely.
guess maybe another topic. I'd love to hear more about kind of your firm. So you transitioned from a few big fours, and I think you worked at Deloitte and EY. So we crossed paths, and we're alumni at Deloitte, which is really cool. How's that been your transition from public practice to running your own firm?
It was definitely a challenge for me because I would say not much besides like the that advisory, side of things that had a lot of experience in. Not much else like really translated from that big government, big nonprofit, like big that industry into like the kind of clients that I'm serving now. I think maybe there's definitely like similarities. Like of course, like the government I mean, of course, even back then, but these days they really try to make their accounting principles as closely as possible to match the private sector. So there's similarities and principles there. But as far as like the actual day to day like dealings with the clients, it's very different. For instance, when I was working with the army, I was really doing a lot of like advising them on how to get their books right for an audit, right? Which was really like doing a lot of analysis and looking backwards, and just really helping them say like, hey, you know what, this is an issue, this is an issue, this is an issue. You need to fix this. But so with small businesses, of course we're doing that when they have that issue, but a lot of them also really care about, hey, I'm trying to do this in the future. What are my options? Like, how can I do this? How can I do that? So there's definitely, that was something that I had to adapt to and really just kind of like learn those skills as I was going out on my own. And I started with zero clients. So I was
Wow.
literally starting out like like fresh. Yeah, just from scratch.
It's not like you could get the army as a first client, right?
Right.
It's like, hey, US Army, I'll help you do your books.
Right. Yeah, yeah, you can't it just doesn't work like that,
No.
And the government contracting game is, man, it's a long game. I was in this um around this time last year I was part of this program. It's called the Amber program, but it's called All Minority Businesses Excelling in Real Time. So it's a program by the county here, Montgomery County, and a lot of like local, and big banks still like fund this program. So it's an accelerator for
That's
like small
awesome.
businesses. And some of those other like owners and founders in there with me were government contractors. And some of them were like pre-revenue going on like 9, 10 months, right? And like, man, like, I'm like, man, it's been 3 months for me and I need to know when my
You
next
need
check is
revenue.
coming in. It was just so much different. So I know the government like that. It was for me. I was trying to get out of that industry, but I know that it's very lucrative but it's takes a lot of time for you to even get that first like
Yeah,
contract.
makes sense. I mean, maybe looking back, you've worked with like literally large clients, like literally the army and government type of clients, and then you work with SMB, so you've had experience in the whole spectrum of sizes and different types of businesses. And do you kind of like lean on like something you enjoy? Like, do you have a favorite type of clients? Like now you've worked with, do you prefer smaller clients or bigger clients? Any thoughts on that?
Definitely smaller clients. Like I love the clients that I work with now, simply because I feel like the change is one more tangible, meaning I can like
Impact.
it feels more direct. Like I feel like, hey, what we're doing actually makes a difference and I can see that
Yes.
difference. And two, like I feel like it's easier for me to in a way control, meaning like when I was working with the army, like there's just so many different like it's almost like how do you call it, the flight people, the flight at
Oh yeah, parachute.
no, the ones that control when you're landing. What do they call them now? The air traffic controllers.
Ah, right.
Like what, like just trying to facilitate like just so many different like
Yeah,
branches and
a lot of moving parts.
yeah, because it's so
Yeah,
huge, right? And a lot of it is out of your control. So
yeah.
and it's funny enough, I still kind of follow a little bit how they're going, because it's a big thing with the army and with the Department of Defense with them not passing an audit. So that's
Yeah.
I still kind of follow to see how things are going there a little bit. It's literally like trying to steer a ship. So
Yeah.
you literally have like less control over how things move. But one thing I enjoy working with smaller businesses is you're able to really make things happen
That's really
faster.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I guess maybe double clicking on that in your clients, like, is there a specific just industry or space, or do you have a great client story that you just really enjoy and you're just passionate about what they're doing?
Yeah, definitely. One of our clients right now, he's a chiropractor, who actually he's here in Maryland,
Amazing.
and he's inspiring on a lot of different levels, so he's a chiropractor, he's an author, he's a public speaker, but he's also like really a serious businessman. So he's like aggressively trying to grow his business too, which is amazing to me, right? So right now he's actually working on expanding to a third location in the same
Maryland.
community that it's in, because he can see the demand for that health and wellness needs, right? So he's working on like he was able to come to an arrangement with these friends of his who run like a huge gym in the community there. So they're gonna like rent out some space for him, about 3,000 square feet, so that he can really get that third location going, right? So I think that's inspiring for me. I love seeing growth-minded business owners who are just all about like just moving up and leveling up. So those are the kind of like clients that we love to work with. But that's just one example of like one success story. And so right now, like part of what we're doing is really just, with him, just advising him along the way as he's, you know, going, making these like, major moves, right, in his
It's amazing.
business. So, that's that tangibility that I was talking about, like being able to
Yeah.
see tangible results. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when done right, they say accountants, you're meant to be the trusted business advisor, and it's almost one of the closest relationship from client accountant that you're sharing literally very private details about someone's life and business with finances, and yeah, it's incredible. I mean, it's a true testament on the relationship you built with your clients and the trust you've earned. So that's really cool. Maybe just like quickly on the topic of clients as well. And I've spoken to obviously a lot of accountants and used to run my own firm as well. And it's always really interesting to hear how accounting firm owners do business development and generate new leads. And I'm sure that has evolved a lot over the last 10 years on different ways of like doing business development 10 years ago compared to today. Could you share a bit more about some of your approaches on how you've navigated that and try to win new clients, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. I would say like that's still like evolving, literally,
Yeah.
like, even till today. I would say in the last, you know, 20 months that we've been in business, almost 2 years, th- like some of the biggest sources of, business development for us has been, not surprisingly, like social media, right? So like LinkedIn, yeah, being on LinkedIn has really just, put us given us visibility to the kind of ideal kind of clients that we'd love to work with. And I think the other thing too, that the other kind of marketing, business development kind of thing that and we're still like, that's something that I still think of, new ways that, especially like from an outbound basis, like kind of like things that could be done. But email marketing, that's been like just sending like a weekly like email newsletter. That's been another, with time, it's actually been something that, I've seen client, people like, or prospects like reference like an email they got like last year. Hey,
Nice.
this was funny, and can I set up a meeting? And I'm like, oh wow, that's cool. So like that's been, just one of the other things that we've been consistent with and been seeing results that way. And referrals from other accountants as well. I think that's been another good source of like business development for us. Just other CPAs like here in the DMV area, but also online as well. I try to be active on tax Twitter.
Yep.
That's actually where we met,
Yeah,
David.
it's been
But yeah,
amazing.
there's a lot of good CPAs, EAs, accountants on there, just always giving out good information. So that's been another place as well. And there's these days even like there's a lot of communities, there's specialized like communities, private communities for firm owners, people that just need to be around like minds. So those have been like the notable kind of business development kind of things that have been. It's funny actually. One of the groups that I'm in, it's called the. I'm going to give a little shout out here if that's
Yeah,
okay.
shout
But it's
out for
called
sure.
the Collaboration Room. It's by this guy Mike
Mike.
Sylvester
Yeah.
on X.
Yeah.
And so he had a little we had a little meeting last week, and he was just talking about like some of the things that he does. So Mike literally has like this giant spreadsheet that he's been tracking from like years and years. But the cool thing there is like he's able to attribute like for each client that comes through where they came from. He's like just some basic information, but in there he notes like where that lead came from initially. So that's something that I am working on implementing
It's
because
really
I
cool.
think it's really good that'll really help me to have that backed in data. So being able to
Yeah.
double down on things that are working and possibly drop things that aren't. But yeah, those are at least from our rudimentary tracking so far. Those are some
It's
of the things that
inspiring.
yeah we've seen.
I got to ask you, have you started your TikTok career yet? Are you using TikTok yet?
Bro, you
Not
know
yet?
what, man? I am on TikTok. It's
Have
funny.
you?
My wife. Interestingly enough, she's huge on TikTok.
Oh,
Actually,
nice.
yeah, she's got like a big
As an
TikTok
accountant?
presence. No, she's my wife is more like into art. So
Amazing.
she's my wife is a singer, but
Yeah.
yeah, so she's got more of like the outgoing personality, and she
That's
just
awesome.
so she's got a big following on TikTok. She's got like 90,000 followers or something like that. But
Incredible.
I
You
think
haven't
a lot of
started?
people that follow me on TikTok follow me from her page because they're like, hey, and they're a lot of them are back in South Africa and just spread around the world. So because but they're like super devoted to her. So that's, I think for a while I did try to, for some months I did when I would post stuff on mainly LinkedIn. I would try to repurpose it and post it on TikTok and try to see, hey, what kind of traction can I get here? Um, I think I just got maybe a little bit discouraged, and I was just like, well, but I'm not really seeing the results that I'm like to see from TikTok. So I think I mean, also when I was talking to some like, just some strategists from that program I was talking about, they were like, yeah, you know what, if you're not seeing results, just let it go for now. Yeah, I did set that. So my account it's there, but
Nice.
no, not right now. I just post like some personal stuff here and there on TikTok. Yeah.
Well, I guess it's really interesting, right? You really have to see the demographics of the users and audience on TikTok and LinkedIn, and which type of clients or type of people you're trying to attract, and does it align to your ideal customer profile? And yeah, I'm sure like maybe TikTok will work good if you have a lot of content creators or Gen Z as your type of client base. And
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
but yeah, I'm sure it'll work. But I love the beauty in just like focusing on one thing and doing that very well. And yeah, it sounds like LinkedIn is working great for you.
Yeah, yeah. So, and for now, we just want to double down on what's working. Yeah, yeah,
It's really fascinating though. Like you mentioned community, and obviously you've seen like, community is huge for me, and I love seeing people kind of just like-minded people like yourself. You're meeting other firm owners, and it feels like it's so different now compared to 10 years ago 15 years ago when we started our profession. It feels like there's a real need for community, right? And there's a real like desire for that. Like, have you also observed that as well?
yeah, definitely. And I think COVID definitely played a part in accelerating that, to some extent. But I think community has always been like a part of my professional career ever since I think from even from my first job, like I think the community was more like in person, right? So like literally me and the guys that we were working together, our client was HHS, Health and Human Services here in Maryland. And so, but it was like a huge 1,000 people building. We just kind of gravitated to each other, and we just would go to lunch together and just started doing everything together. We started going to the club together, actually.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
I'm
that was like a little bit of a community, right, for
yeah.
me. And when I think even when I went to the Big Four, the stints that I had there, like, because it's so huge. Eventually, I wound up having like a little community of my own in there. So I
It's
think it's
awesome.
always been a part of my professional career, but I think it definitely took on a much bigger role when I went out on my own and
Mm.
started, ASO Financial. And so then, which was just like, you know, not even 2 years ago. So at that point, COVID already happened. Everybody's already online. So I think for me, like it made it a little bit easier to just kind of jump in. But now it's just having a balance, I think, of that in person versus
Yeah.
online. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure like now you're a firm owner, it's not like a big four environment where you have 1,000 people, 2,000 people around you. So
Yeah.
sometimes like I feel like community just even helps. Like, it doesn't have to be lonely, right? Like there's other people going through the same thing and same challenges, and you can kind of share learnings and ideas, which is, I mean, that's why I love community.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just, I think it's you'd be. I've been pleasantly surprised at like how open people have been, to like sharing. Like I was literally DMing somebody on Twitter that I've seen like around ideas on like some outbound accounting tactics, and I literally DM'd him thinking this is kind of crazy, but yeah, I just did it anyway. And so he responded and he was like, "Hey, I'm doing this and this," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing this and this," and I was like, "Hey, maybe if you're open to it, maybe we could meet up and have a meeting sometime." And he literally was just like, "Here's my calendar. Let's set something up." So I was just like, "Wow, that's it's." I was pleasantly surprised that, but you don't know if you don't try, right? So I think that's been another thing too that I've just seen, even similar to how we met. I responded to something you posted out there.
It's really cool. I think yeah, doing business now and meeting people these days in 2024, it's so different compared to 10 years ago. But I guess on that note, we're fastly creeping up to time, and I feel like we were just getting started as well. So there's still lots to talk about. But you mentioned earlier about your outsource model, and I know we've spoken about this a few times, how you have a team that you outsource. Could you share more on that, and how has outsourcing helped you in your role?
Yeah. So I have a team of two accountants. They are offshore, so they're not here. But I met them, again, talking about social media, but I actually met the owner of the firm on LinkedIn, and we just kind of started messaging each other, and I also did some digging, just some due diligence, into him and his firm as well. But yeah, that's really how we met. And then, when I think as part of that digging, like I literally like saw some pictures of him at like the AICPA conference, and I was like, okay, well, this guy is kind of legit, right? So, so like just it gave me that kind of like confidence. And even when I spoke to him, he was like, hey, we'll give you a trial run. You can just let me know how you think. And but it's been great because that team has really helped me to get a lot of time back to really do a lot of things that I've been meaning to or needing to do to grow the firm to where I
Yeah.
wanted to get to. Just they've been helping with a lot of the accounting, bookkeeping, some of the tax work as well, and really helping me like they've been helping me get that background like foundational work together so that I can do that advising with the clients,
That's
right?
incredible.
And they've been great. They've been a really great resource. Just it was something that I wasn't sure about, because I've heard like mixed stories and what of people, who do go offshoring. So I'm happy that it's a good story so far.
Yeah, it seems like the ROI is great and it's unlocking you to do more and other things. Maybe just continuing on that thread, have
Hmm.
you found like anything challenging in terms of do you have to educate the team a lot? Do you have to like explain to them, these are the processes, this is the exact step, and then like are you more just reviewing and improving and correcting? Like could you share more on like getting them up to speed? Or is it really like plug and play? It's like, let's join the team and they already have everything sorted out.
No, there's definitely a learning curve, with I think it goes both ways with them like coming on and even with me like learning to delegate and in a way that makes sense for them, and it's comfortable for both of us. So, you know, these days it's literally because they're also on the other side of the world, right? So a lot of times our time zones don't match up, but I know that they're still getting the work that needs to be done because I've sent them like detailed guidance and instructions, instructional videos, whatever in a form that they understand, right? So, and they've given me feedback as well. They're like, hey, you know what? Like we were comfortable like when you record these
Nice.
videos for us and show us exactly what needs to be done. We love that. So that's been good feedback for me as well. So that's made things a lot easier and smoother. So the work is to some extent asynchronous. Sorry,
Nice.
asynchronous. But yeah, it it's we're in 2024, right? So that's just the reality of where we are
Love
now.
it.
So, um, but that's kind of been how we've been working with the team.
Yeah, I've been very impressed. I remember since we first met, like you're a big user of Loom and kind of async communication. Could you maybe share any advice or any tips to listeners on how you've leveraged Loom and how that's really helped you unlock time and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at first I definitely knew that it would be a good way to communicate and kind of like train and communicate internally, within the team. But it's also been great, like, with client service as well. So one of our larger clients is a nonprofit that they go through like a yearly audit, right? And so as part of the audits, the auditors want them to, hey, demonstrate to us that you can do this and this, so literally the client was like, hey, you know what? Like, I actually don't see you guys actually do the work, but I have to show them that I'm the one that does the work. So she was like, how can you train me on how you reconcile this and this account? And I was like, oh, I can just record myself
Nice.
doing the whole thing on Loom. It took about 30 minutes, and I sent that to her. Now, that would have been maybe an hour or hour and a half meeting, of
Yeah.
us going back and forth on, hey, you do this and you do that. And then I sent that to her, and her response back was literally like, she was like, my God, this is awesome. I found, she was like, I found the steps, like, I found the way you explained it, like, easy to walk through. And so she really appreciated that, right? So that was another, like, kind of use case. And with the kind of work that we're doing with some of our business clients, depending on the service package, it's a good way for us to like deliver like a monthly financial like wrap up, or just get some kind of update on a periodic basis to really see what's going on with their business. And it's something that they appreciate as
I
well.
love
So
that.
there's been a lot of use cases
That's
for
incredible.
Loom for something like that for us.
Yeah, I love how forward thinking and tech forward you are in running your firm, and just like questioning the status quo. Like, you don't need to do something the same way as been done for the last 10 years, and you can adopt new methodologies and processes to, I guess your client also appreciates like not needing to have a 1 hour call with you every single month, right? And
Yeah.
everyone saves time. Do you feel like it has actually helped substitute that meeting? Like, do you feel like a Loom video, like a 5-10 minute Loom video is enough, or do you still sometimes feel like your client has a lot of questions and would prefer a follow-up? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends. So a lot of times, especially with tax things, it'll be a scenario where we'll send them a Loom video and we'll say, hey, if you have any questions, let's set up some time to talk. But we'll literally go through everything that we know they might have questions about. But some other times we're sending them a video knowing that, there might be a you know, there's a strong chance that we might have to have a sit down. But it's, us, really, it's us kind of getting ahead of that already. So I think it really depends on the scenario and what the purpose of why we're sending that communication. But it's definitely helped like to cut time though.
That's a good segue to communication with clients. So I've heard quite a bit that that's quite a pain point, like accountant communicating with clients and chasing clients and reminding clients and requesting information and requesting for supporting documentation. And then it's quite unstructured, right? Sometimes you're using phone calls, sometimes you're emailing, sometimes you're texting, and these days probably social media DMs, a whole spectrum of mechanisms that you could be communicating with your clients on. Have you found that quite challenging on just like all these methods, and how are you kind of approaching communicating with your clients?
Yeah, it's been a challenge for sure. I think for us though, we've tried to, as much as possible, keep things in one place. So at least with the tax stuff, we try to keep all tax stuff literally in the portal that we use. So especially when there's like let's say we're dealing with like a job, like let's say a tax job that needs to be done with the return that needs to be prepared or something like that. We'll keep a lot of that communication in the tax dome. That's the software that we use, right? So just in that portal software, we try to keep that in there. But I think a lot of everything outside of that, like a lot of the accounting communication, a lot of the advisory, those could be a lot of like emails. And for some of our clients, probably texting it a little bit too. So I do want there to be like, and this is probably like asking the impossible, but yeah, I wish there was, and I've heard of some software solutions out there that kind of combine everything into one place, but that's probably definitely something that I'm going to look into, in the near future. Yeah. Because that's definitely, it's a pain point, but it's not, I guess,
Easy to
a,
solve.
yeah. And I guess it's not so pressing that I'm just like, I need to solve it right away.
I love
But
it.
it's on my radar though.
Yeah. I'm sure eventually when you grow your firm and you hire people, it'll just get worse, right? And how do you have the knowledge transfer and making sure everyone's on the same page? Really cool. Maybe moving to the next topic, and related to that is like software and tech. Obviously, my background, I started as an accountant, then I moved into the tech side of things to build products for accountants and SMBs. So we do got to talk about this a topic. Unfortunately, how have you kind of adopted tech in your kind of day to day, and maybe how has it evolved in your career so far? And we talked about Loom, and like how has it made your life easier in any way, or yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it has, and we adopt a lot of tech. And at some point, actually, last year, I worked with this guy who's a no code. He's like a no code specialist, right? So he specializes in just like connecting and integrating. So I have like a little bit of like a process, a flowchart in place, right? So it's like a CRM that's connected to Zapier, that kind of takes when a client comes in, right? When a lead comes in and they fill out our form on our website, it takes some information from there and puts it into CRM. And then when they book a meeting, there's an email that goes out to them automatically,
Nice.
just asking them to send us some information ahead of the meeting. A lot of the stuff or things that happen before we have the meeting and on a storage information data storage kind of level also are automated to a very good extent, and we like it that way because if I'm trying to do everything or we're trying to do everything manually, like things are going to slip through the cracks. That's something that we keep like iterating and just keep working on. So even to the proposals, level when we move to that stage, right? That's automated as well. So, getting a signature and collecting payments, and collecting the payment method,
Yeah.
all that stuff has tech, implemented in there. So,
Incredible.
that's for us is something that we are not like we don't shy away from. Like, I think for us, we really, I think we try to find a good balance though, because, I feel like these days, like, I don't want to get so confused that it takes up like so much of my time, because I think I'll try to find a good balance between implementing like tech and even AI, like just to my day to day, like helping to use it to like analyze things and break down like financial statements, for example, and just being able to help me like think through what I'm looking at. I'm not like trying to build my own GPT or like something like that. Like, I leave that to like, even when I had my guy come on with the no code guy, like I was like, yo, I can't do this myself, right? Just, so I do know like I have limits, but I do as
It's
much as
awesome.
possible like embrace technology. Yeah.
Well, it really, I guess it really unlocks time for you to do really cool other things. And I love that. Maybe that's a good segue, and it's quite a timely topic right now. Everyone's talking about AI and Gen AI, and you said you also use it yourself, like personally and maybe professionally. Could you maybe share more on how you've adopted AI in your day to day and how it's helped you?
Yeah, definitely. Man, I think it came at the perfect time.
Or your client
Because
emails?
yeah, I definitely, I think at first, like early on, I would use it a lot to just create like a basic outline of an email. And I think as they started putting updates, like I just started finding more use cases for it. So now I do use it like for a good amount of things. Like for example, like I'll pop a financial statement in there and just start asking it questions, right? Like let's say I'm analyzing a prior year, just like comparison financial statements, like prior year to current year, and just I'm looking at things to look out for. So it helps me just get my thinking juices flowing. But I definitely, make sure to still like for me, it gets things started and then I kind of take over from there.
For
And
sure.
I think, it does help me like I would say do some of the more manual things that put together emails from time to time,
Yeah.
right? That kind of thing. Just making it sound nicer and it more less. I guess when somebody pisses me off sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? Let's make it sound less angry or something like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, definitely. So those are, I think, some of the ways that I've used it. But I think more recently, though, I've actually like been like, so it's helped me. I, I think in some more interesting ways. So I've been like having like voice conversations with like specifically ChatGPT, right? And I think sometimes like I'll, at least for some of the content that I've actually put out there, it's actually been me having a conversation with,
Nice.
you
Amazing.
know, now I edit that part out because so they
Yeah,
don't know that
yeah,
it's happening, but it's actually been me because I think just based on my personality, it's a little bit difficult sometimes. I've been talking about LinkedIn, right? I have to put content out as a business owner who's constantly trying to like keep our business out there. I have to always put content out there, right? So it's hard for me sometimes to like just look into a camera and start talking. But if I'm talking to, even if it's an AI, like I don't care. But it's something that's talking back to me and sounds like a human being, like I'm gonna start talking, So it's actually been something that I've been getting more into like the last couple months. But that's been, yeah, one use case.
I really love seeing how AI has just really democratized content creation and just making people come out of their comfort zone a little bit and do things creative. I feel like sometimes accounting, you don't have too many creative outlets, and now you get to like create podcasts, create content, or do TikTok dances, like anything. So I think that's really, really cool.
You've been doing some TikTok dances, David?
I have not got onto that yet, but who knows? You never say no in the next 5 years. uh, maybe,
Oh man.
maybe a quick follow up. Is there any other interesting AI use cases that that you're excited to see in the next few years in this space?
Yeah. I think, well, in the accounting space, well, in the life space in general, I think I would like to see a more robust AI human assistant that's not just Alexa or Siri or whatever that is, right? Something that's, more like smart, more intelligent, and does a lot, just has more functionality. In the accounting space and in we've talked about this before already. I think different lengths, but I think just a more of that marriage between like AI and just financial management, financial advisory, and accounting in general. I mean, right now, like we've seen like snippets and things out there of things that could be done. But yeah, I think, I would like to have some type of like real, functionality, being able to talk to like an accounting assistant, for instance, and being able to like, let's say, have conversations on analyzing, balance sheets. I think that'd be cool. If that could happen in the next 5 years. But I think just something like that really is intelligent and smart, and I think that's something that could happen. Yeah.
The days of like pulling up your accounting standards or legislation or tax legislations and tax cases, like it's almost like a real-time accounting buddy, right? That's available 24/7. Yeah, I love that. I'm sure you could have a lot of those assistants too. You probably could have an EA assistant to help you with admin stuff, and then yeah, it'll be pretty interesting how that evolves.
and like a little accounting assistant, yeah, that have like different functionalities. Now I would build that GPT. If that was something that was out there and you had to build, you're like, yeah, you can build this into a GPT. I think I would invest time into that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know we're reaching time. A few more topics I want to talk about, and it's quite timely. And I think you'd have a great perspective on this. And it's a current state of the accounting industry. So you're seeing all the headlines and the news about accounting industry, how it's maybe declining and people are no longer excited like you and I 10 years ago of jumping into accounting as a first career. And there's been a decline of accountants in the industry. Like, how do you think we got to where we are today? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think for me, like, because I've seen a lot of different opinions about this, but I think for me, like, I mean, I don't want to get political here, but we just saw it with, what just happened today, right? You know, like economics like speaks volumes, right? And I think when it comes to the world of business and we look at like the different like career paths, finance, accounting, marketing, and investment banking, whatever like you're looking at when you go to business school and you start comparing like the past and like the economics of it, like accounting is near the bottom. It's just the sad reality, right? Like when you compare how much you invest, the 4 years and then some additional, year or two to get that CPA
CPA.
or whatever you're doing, compared to like the ROI, it's you can't compare it to somebody who's like in investment banking or who's in finance, right? So I think that's one place that
Makes
we
sense.
as an industry could collectively catch up on. I think I've heard that it's one thing that turns away like young people, from pursuing like you know, a career in accounting is like they're like, I don't feel like I'm gonna get paid as much as the guy in finance. So that's one thing that I think would attract just more people. I think into the industry. It would make it cool. If you're gonna make bank as an accountant, why wouldn't you go into into the industry, right? Yeah, I think that's one thing. But part of that is just highlighting other ways that other people could go into the industry as well, like not just going into a big four or something like that. There's other ways to also like, get in and stay in the industry too. So, because I think a lot of people get burned out in that model. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a massive like value perception change that needs to happen in the market. Like I think traditionally just the value of an accountant has been people have not probably valued as much as they should, and then maybe also accountants, right, need to really like what we're doing is really valuable. We're delivering so much amazing insights for businesses for them to make strategic decisions. And yeah, I think it's like internal and also internal for accountants and also external. Like the whole market needs to go through some change and just renew understanding about the profession. But you're leading the way, so I think everyone can learn from you.
I think we're both leading the way. I would
Yeah,
say we're both, yeah.
very cool. Maybe just thinking ahead, like the thinking about the future. What are you most excited about the future, or how do you see the industry evolving over the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think there's definitely gonna be I think there's going to be and I'm seeing it more and more like just with the younger accountants, there's going to be more of that. I think there's going to be like more of that drop off from, accountants and CPAs and advisors, doing like more of like that basic, I don't want to say basic. Yeah, not yeah, debits and credits, and also like a lot of like the more basic from a tax perspective, like the basic 1040 or that kind of thing. And I think like the modern accountant 5 years from now is really going to be working more closely with technology. I think they're going to be focused more on like advising. They're still going to be doing like, because the accounting is always going to be that foundational piece, but I think they're going to be like more focusing more on like, hey, this accounting that's been done, how can it better serve me and my clients and help them achieve their goals? And I think that's where like the modern, or the future accountant, the modern future accountant is really going to be focused. And I think it's good because that will, demonstrate the value of us, collectively better, I think. And I think it's where we should be focused.
It's really cool to hear. You make me think about like in the future, the modern future accountant is almost a technologist accountant, right? It's all like learning how to best use tools and to unlock your capacity and your knowledge as well as an accountant. Yeah, I totally big plus one. And I'm sure we all didn't go to study accounting and do our CPA just to push buttons or do the manual repetitive stuff. Like we want to be strategic and do the fun stuff, less of the manual repetitive stuff. So it's probably a net positive on how it's evolving over the next few years. Really cool. And yeah, I guess allow firm owners to work on creative things that you enjoy and talk to your clients and managing your clients, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to be still that small
For
percentage.
sure. Cool. Well, I know we're approaching time, Doyin, and it's been amazing just to learn from you. But I like to close my podcast basically called the Fast Five segment, which is five quick questions just to get to know you and help our listeners to just learn more from about you. First one is really thinking about your role today, and I know you've done a lot of bookkeeping and accounting. What's one thing you love about your role, and one thing you maybe wish could improve?
One thing I love is I think just working one on one with my clients and just picking their brain and really getting to advise them. And I think one thing that I want to improve upon, actually, this is me personally, I think where I'm at now is really just trying to improve on my sales process and being able to just better, like, just continually doing a better job of like articulating the value of me and my team. I think that's just something that I'm always like just working. Right now, I'm really focusing heavily on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to hear like this constant thread in this podcast, how you're just very customer obsessed, and it's basically why advisors love doing what they do. It's just seeing their clients succeed, and you feel like you're part of the team and helping them achieve their goals, which is really cool. Next question is around, it's a hot topic around like billing clients, and it's always been interesting on that, on like what's the best way to build clients, and there's always been this traditional time cost model and charging per hour. What's your thoughts on this, and is there a world of like monthly recurring subscriptions, and any thoughts on billing?
Yeah, I think well, since I started my firm, I've never billed hourly. It just was not something that I think I just never. I mean, at Deloitte, and I was on a salary, right? So when I was at the Big Four, I was a salaried employee. So, but I knew that behind the scenes, it was an hourly billing system, and I was exposed to that. So, but when I started my firm, I think my biggest challenge though with that not going hourly was figuring out like what's a good price. So especially my first client, and I'll never forget it. I was just like, I remember sending out the proposal. I was just like, oh my God, like, is that a good price? Like, what's, I said 50% up front, 50 at the end. Like, I was just questioning everything. So like, but yeah, I think I always knew that the hourly thing wasn't gonna work for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just double clicking onto that, like even understanding market price, like how do you even approach that? Is it, I'm sure there's no database which is like, oh, these are the standard rates in the US or in
Yeah.
Maryland. Like,
Yeah.
is that just a game of trial and error?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. It's a game of like just continually iterating and changing. But I do know that one thing that really helped me was so when I was first starting out, literally, I joined this community. I'm no longer a part of it, but I was at the time it was Future Firm Accelerate by Ryan Lazanis. So I was there for about 9 months or so, but I really I wanted to get in there to really just learn, like just because I'd heard like just some good things about the systemized approach that he had in that program. So part of that was it was literally like a spreadsheet that I downloaded that I had where like for each project you can literally like it's called a sanity a costing sanity worksheet, right? So where you like put in like what you estimate each task will cost like for the from an hour standpoint. But before going into it, I already had put a number down. So then I calculate and work backwards and say, okay, calculate the hours and what I want my profit margin to be and yada, 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 and see, okay, is it close to the number that I put down? So it's really a sanity kind of thing to make sure that what I'd come up with in my head actually makes sense. I don't, so that's the extent of the hourly thing is really to make sure that what I did come up with makes sense. But I think overall, though, right now I'm actually moving more to like a fixed pricing system. So I'm going to be updating like literally the pricing page on our website to just have it more like set because I don't want to be having awkward conversations with the client, right? So when they're asking like, "Hey, so how much is it going to be?" and then like I'm like, "Okay, well that depends on this, this, and this." I want them to have an idea already of a range that's precise enough for their specific scenario. So that's something that I'm actually implementing on the website. Yeah.
I think customers would appreciate that, and if anything, you avoid wasting time on both sides. Like if it's not a good fit,
Yeah.
like
And it's more transparent too.
yeah, instead of spending 2 weeks trying to win a lead and then you bring up pricing and you're like, oh no, yeah, you want to avoid that. Very cool. Next question is maybe thinking ahead. What excites you the most about the future of like the accounting, finance, tax industry?
Man, that's a loaded question. I think what excites me is just the way that, some of the younger accountants are thinking. I see a lot of them. Actually, I remember this because I've paid attention to like the Inc. 5000 list like last year and this year, and I remember like seeing like just some of the guys that are on tax Twitter. A couple of them are on that list, right? And they run accounting firms, and I'm just like, wow, like it's inspiring to me. So, you know, I think I, I like seeing like some of the really business minded accounting firm owners out there and just seeing how they run their firms. And I pick things from them and they inspire me. So that's something I like about where we're heading. But as far as like what I don't like, I think just from a numbers and data standpoint, like just the fact that the numbers keep dropping for CPAs specifically, right? I think that's something that discourages me a little bit, and it just kind of goes back to I know they've been talking about it over at AICPA and all these places how to fix that. So, and that can be a whole nother conversation. But yeah, just that's something that I think I don't like about it. Just that the numbers show that yeah.
Like there's less interest. But do you think like I've been thinking a bit on that on like let's just say there's not as many professionals in the space, but with you you're in this space obviously. So there's less supply, meaning like you should have more demand and there may be a chance in the future of like winning more work or increasing your prices, right? Like it might work for the people who are already in accounting is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it does work definitely for me. So yeah, I should look at it that way. More for me.
Yeah, pretty interesting. Next one, just maybe a more personal one, but like I love to always like ask this question, and I think it says a lot about someone. But like, what's your favorite quote or a mantra you like to live by in your life?
That's deep, David.
It is deep.
Favorite mantra, favorite quote is tomorrow is not promised. And that's just something that was instilled in me like back in Nigeria, like growing up. Because growing up then, like it was just, it wasn't the best of environments. I mean, I think I was surrounded by my family, like with love, and just we had like what we needed to just keep going and survive and eventually come here. But that was just something that I think when we came here, like, we just knew we had to take advantage of just the opportunity, right? And just grasp on and hold on to it and don't let go. That's I think one thing that I've just kind of been operating by.
Well, a big kudos to you. You've lived in a very inspiring story, and I know you're probably inspiring a lot of people right now. And I know it'll be a few years when you're on the Inc. list. I think by next year you'll be on that list, and we'll be celebrating.
I'm claiming it, man. It's gonna happen.
Amazing. Well, final question: what do you need help with right now, or how can listeners help you in any way?
Definitely. So if your listeners out there are experiencing cash flow issues, or they just find themselves like needing you know a good like financial partner, so they should definitely check out our website, follow us on LinkedIn. Just check out our newsletter as well, the Profit Pilot. They'll find a lot of good insight there, and I think that's really like how they can find out more about us.
Amazing. Yeah, we'll definitely put all the links in the show notes. But what's the website off the top of your head, if you know?
ASO Financial.
Awesome. Well, Doyin, thank you so much for your time. You've been incredible. We spent over an hour just talking about accounting and finance, tax, and your inspiring journey. And I know a lot of accounting firm owners can definitely learn from you on how forward thinking and how you do things differently, right? And I want to say a big thank you for being such a great friend and such a great support with everything I do as well.
Definitely, David. Definitely. I'm waiting forward to hearing that venture capital news from you.
Amazing, Doyin. Well, take care. We'll definitely talk soon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Make It Count. We hope you found it valuable and entertaining. If you enjoyed the episode, please support us by subscribing to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube channels. Please also give us a rating or leave a review to help us reach more listeners. We'll see you in the next episode for more incredible conversations with accounting, finance, and tax leaders around the world.